51. What do you mean by pesticide paradox? What you can do to overcome it? Answer. The pesticide paradox is basically a phenomenon where the more one tests the software, the more it becomes immune to its tests. To overcome this, testers should always find new strategies, approaches, and test cases, so that they can identify bugs and resolve them. The following methods can be used to prevent the pesticide paradox. Create a new set of test cases for different components of the software, adding new test cases to the existing test cases. The use of these methods can lead to finding more defects in the areas where defect levels have declined. 52. When to choose manual testing over automation testing and vice versa? Answer. Choosing manual testing over automation testing when test cases need to be run for a short duration of time, once or twice. When one needs to perform exploratory testing, usability testing, or ad hoc testing. When assessing an application's user-friendliness, whenever flexibility is needed. Whenever one wants to better manage complex situations, scenarios. Choosing automation testing over manual testing whenever test cases have to be run repeatedly over a long period of time. When one needs to perform performance testing, load testing, or regression testing. Whenever one wishes to record the testing process. When one has a limited amount of time to complete the testing phase. When tests are needed to be executed in a standard runtime environment. When tests involve repetitive steps. When there are multiple and quick deployments for the product, the manual becomes very time-taking and redundant. 53. In what way will you determine when to stop testing? Answer. Testing can be quite challenging when it comes to determining when to stop. In the modern world, many software applications are so complex and run in so many interdependent environments that complete testing is impossible. The following factors are often considered when deciding when to stop testing: if deadlines are met, release deadlines, testing deadlines, etc., and there are no high priority issues left in the system. Completion of test cases with a certain passing percentage. As soon as the test budget is depleted. The mean time between two inherent failures is known as the MTBF, mean time between failure. When the MTBF is quite high, the testing phase may be stopped depending on stakeholder decisions. As soon as the automated code coverage meets a specified threshold value and there are no critical bugs. If the bug rate drops below a certain level. After the beta or alpha testing period has ended. 54. Can 100% testing coverage be achieved? How do you ensure test coverage? Answer. Testing a product 100% is considered impossible. You can, however, get closer to your goal by following the steps below. Developing an effective testing strategy. Prepare a checklist for all activities related to testing. Establish a priority list for the application's critical areas. List all application requirements. Identify the risks associated with the application. Utilize automated testing. 55. System testing can be done at any stage. Yes or no? Answer. No. System testing cannot be conducted at any stage of the development process. In system testing, all components of the software are tested together to ensure that the overall product meets the specified specifications. Therefore, system testing cannot take place at any stage. Instead, it must be done only after all modules or units are in place and are working properly, but before user acceptance testing, UAT. 56. If proper documentation is not available for testing, what steps will you take to overcome the challenge? Answer. QAs should refer to the following references if they cannot find standard documents such as System Requirements Specification or Feature Description document. Screenshots wireframes a previous version of the application. In addition, having discussions with the business analyst and the developer is another reliable method. This is helpful in resolving doubts and bringing clarity to requirements. The emails exchanged could also serve as testing references. Another option for verifying the application's functionality is to perform smoke testing. This would expose a few very basic bugs in the application. In cases where none of the above options work, we can simply use our previous experience to test the software application. 57. What are some best practices that you should follow when writing test cases? Answer. When writing test cases, you should follow the following guidelines. Assess the project's risks and deadlines before planning and prioritizing test cases and write accordingly. Keep the 80/20 rule in mind. For the best coverage of your application, 20% of your tests should cover 80% of its functionality. Make sure you don't try to test all cases at once, but rather improvise them as you go. Create a list of your test cases and categorize them according to business scenarios and functionality. Modularity and granularity are important when designing test cases. Provide test cases in a way that can easily be understood by others and modified if necessary. Remember that the software designed is ultimately for customers, so keep their requirements in mind. Manage a stable release cycle by using a test management tool. Keep track of your test cases on a regular basis. Test cases must be unique and irrelevant or duplicated must be removed. 58. When the requirements are still in flux, what is the best way to test a product? Answer. For some products, a requirement stack is not available. It may require considerable effort to identify if an application has unexpected functionality, which indicates a deeper problem with the software development process. Removing functionality that isn't necessary for the purpose of the application is a good idea. Otherwise, create a test plan based on the assumptions you've made about the product. But, it is important that you thoroughly document all assumptions in the test plan. 59. What makes boundary value analysis a good method for providing test cases? Answer. A boundary value analysis is defined as a software testing technique that uses the boundary values of equivalence classes as input to test cases. Black box testing uses boundary value analysis as one of the most commonly used case design techniques. In boundary value analysis, values at the boundaries are included in test cases. It is generally true that there are more errors at the boundaries of an input domain than in its center, which makes boundary value analysis an excellent method for generating test cases. In boundary value analysis, values at the boundaries are included in test cases. When the input lies within the boundary range, it is a positive test, but if it lies outside, it is a negative test. The values may include the maximum, the minimum, the inside edge, the outside edge, the typical value, or the error value. Example. Assume you're testing an input box accepting numbers from 1 to 20. As a result of boundary value analysis, we can divide test cases into 3 categories. The test data will be the same as the input boundaries of input, 1 and 20. Input values above the extreme edges, 2 and 21. Input values below the extreme edges, 0 and 19. Therefore, the boundary values are 0, 1, 2, and 19, 20, 21. 60. How do you know the code has met specifications?